Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to show you a new application that I'm starting, and hopefully I'll get it integrated into some other applications very soon. But this is part one in the series, and it's a URL rating application based on Node-RED on the BlueMix platform. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole setup of this because there's a lot of tutorials on how to set up a Node-RED application and binding a Mongo database to that application. So I'm not going to cover any of that stuff in this tutorial. But what I am going to show you is the two services that I created that are the core services for this application. And the first service is to be able to post a rating. So I want to be able to post a URL with a value that the reader for the website happened to click on. And you see this very often on many sites, maybe in the form of stars or birds or whatever, crowns. They click on 2 stars, it's a 2-star rating. If they click on 3 stars, it's a 3-star rating, etc. So my URL is just simply post rating, and then you pass in the payload with the URL and the value. Now, what I always like to do is pump out to the debug console as I'm testing my application, so I can see what's actually coming in, and then I can write the code to the actual payload. And then, of course, lastly, I bind it to my Mongo Lab URL rate database, and I populate the ratings collection, and I'm only going to store the payload of the object. So let's go ahead and look at what that looks like. So I have a Google Chrome extension where I can do a post event. So you can see here I have my URL with the /post rating, and my payload is just simple JSON, where I have a field called URL with the URL I want to rate, and then a rating with a numerical value. And here I put 1. Since it's on my blog, I should probably rate it a little higher. So I'll put a 5 in there, and then I click send. Now you'll notice the output I get from this is just simply the URL that I passed in and then the rating, and I could modify that if I want. But if I come back over here, you can see now in the debug console that the payload object contains the URL and the rating. And that's what I actually end up storing into the DB. So if I go over to the database, you can see I have my ratings collection here. If I refresh this, it should bump up to 8. There we go. And these are all of the records I have in there right now. So we have a URL and the rating. Now I went ahead and also created an index on URL to make the queries faster. Because basically for the rating system, you're going to be passing in the URL, and you want to return all of the objects with that value. So having an index will make it a lot faster. And of course, unique is set to false because you're going to have a lot of documents with the same URL, but with just different ratings. And you can see all the different ratings I have in the system for this demo. So now we have a database, we have a bunch of ratings in there, and now we want to be able to get the ratings to actually show the ratings in some type of UI widget. So the next thing I had to do was actually create a get rating service, and I give it the URL entry point of /rating. And of course I debug output all of the different entry points in here so I can kind of walk through it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. But let's go ahead and walk through the flow. So I get the request in. I'm going to send the payload over into the Mongo database as a query payload. And then I'm going to pump that out. And then I'm not a MongoDB expert. I couldn't figure out how to actually pass in a query to give me the average. I did read some articles out there on some possible ways to do it. So just for now, I went ahead and wrote a little bit of JavaScript code where I just iterate through the collection, the array of records, and then basically I create an average by dividing the total account by the total by the count, and then I simply return the rating with the average. And of course, if there is no rating or ratings in the array, I just simply turn a rating of 0. So once again, I end up debugging that stuff. So if we go over to my other window here, you could see I have the same. So this is a get request, and it's at the /rating, and I'm going to pass in the URL parameter with an encoded URL, and I could decode that, or I can encode it right here inside this tool. And then I could simply click send. And you could see it replies with a rating of 2.75. So now I can use this in my end application for the visualization of what this particular web page is rated at by all of its users. So this is part 1 in the series, just a primer to actually, you know, get it going. And now I'm going to add a UI around it so I can actually post ratings and get visual, you know, visualizations on my blog. So that's it for today, and thanks for watching.